craven hunger and gave you jittery bouts of insomnia. It neither idealized nor sought to possess. The love I felt in the photos was a love for the imperfect and struggling. It was a love for the dirty, plain, beautiful, funny places many of us call home. My heart beat a little faster looking at them, at the birds, and the space around them. I had grown solitary while waiting for the world to quieten around a story. I had grown solitary as an only child of two aging immigrants who had fled their respective homelands for a continent devoid of family, who had drawn a strike line through their histories, who sat on the land like two potted plants rather than trees in soil. I had grown solitary as a writer whose craft demanded my separation from others. Is that what I saw in the space around the birds? My own solitude? I made contact with the musician and arranged to meet him for a bird walk. I wanted to be enraptured and feel I was still inspirable. I did not see nature as my own personal lords or healing wilderness. Or maybe I did. "Hello," the musician said, loping towards me with his heavy camera, a stout figure in layers of woolly brown. "Hello," I replied. I was standing by a large duck pond on a cold but sunny December morning, exhaling cloudlets of breath. People walked by on the path with their dogs. Ducks waded past us on the water. I had sudden misgivings. I felt shy. What had I been thinking? The musician was a serious birder. I belonged to the vast numbers satirized by Portlandia who knew nothing about birds and thought mostly of them as a decorative motif. My house was a frivolous bazaar of nature-themed trinkets, from the prettiest handcrafted duck lamp to the usual menagerie of stuffed toys to our anthropology owl mugs. I lived in a state of unforgivable anthropomorphism. Anthropo-apologetic. That's what I was feeling. What did I know of live birds? What did I know of the wild world? And what did it know of me? I did not grow up picking berries by a river valley, or clambering through dark, dewy forests, or observing tide pools. I had many adventures as a child, but they did not involve the wilds of Canada. They involved casinos, international airports, and mammoth department stores. My parents were devoutly metropolitan. My father was a London-born foreign correspondent, stationed in Tokyo when he met my Japanese mother, a demure, long-haired, sumi-e artist who initially balked at my father's immense height and skeletal bearing. Their courtship began at a Canadian embassy party in a thick fug of cigarette smoke. He fell in love with her charm and prettiness. She fell in love with his worldliness and the promise of escape. They married, and a couple of years later, work drew my parents to London, where I was born. And then another job drew them to Canada. An exotic, cosmopolitan couple had suddenly landed in a quiet North Toronto neighborhood. No Kensington High Street, no Shinjuku, just a thick blanket of snow. Just unidentified scampering animals and unfamiliar winged creatures. My father dashed off somewhere for work and my mother was left alone in a cold house. Quiet, quiet, no noise except the birds outside. A choir on their way from or to elsewhere, birds thriving in their new territory. All those notes held in the cold air, the migrant songs, were not a comfort to my mother. Having lived through hard-scrabble war years in the Japanese countryside, she had no fondness for nature. She liked busy downtowns, a thick cladding of civilization. She liked sashaying down the street in a miniskirt and heels, Rothman's cigarette in hand, and causing an uproar. My mother was beautiful and boasted she had, on various occasions, turned the heads of such men as Mick Jagger, John Lennon, and King Hussein. Toronto did not impress her. Instead of appreciation, my mother looked out her icy Canadian window and saw problems. What to do with all the fucking snow? What to do with the fucking gazebo? Here's what she did. When spring came, she dug up the entire backyard and installed a traditional Japanese rock garden, a carefully ordered and manicured